In case you are words. Hello, and welcome to Dr. Dorian's House of Killers, where we take a look at all your favorite killers and see how they could be implemented into Dead by Daylight. Today, we are going to look at the Birch from Crypt TV. In case you are unfamiliar with the Birch, link to Crypt TV and the Birch down below. And if you have any questions, I stream Monday, Tuesday, and every other Wednesday and Friday on Twitch. Link in the description down below. So, the Birch. As always, we're going to start off with speed, the size of the killer, terror radius size. In case you didn't know, I am of the opinion that each killer should have at least 2 different base abilities, similar to a toolbox or a flashlight or something that they can switch. And I feel like in order to not reveal which power the killer equipped when going into the match, the layout of the maps or the additional items, whatever, like traps, jigsaw boxes, and so on and so forth, should always be on the map no matter which power you take. Only maybe the effect are different. Okay. The Birch. The speed, 115% movement, 4.6 meters per second. Size tall, terror radius big. And with size tall, I mean really tall. If you look at the Crypt TV, the Birch is a huge tree woman. Okay, the Birch, first of all, has a map effect, or the effect that she brings to the map is that moss and grass starts growing from certain spawn points that are interactable. And additional spawn points appear over time. I don't know if the spawn points appear more the more spawn points exist, sort of like if the survivors don't take care of it, the amount of spawn points start increasing more and more and more, or if it should be more like the more spawn points there are, the less, the slower new spawn points come from mosses and grasses. But anyway, so vegetation, nature starts creeping in. This is important because some of the maps have little grass and stuff like that. And the Birch is more or less a tree monster or a tree guardian or a tree killer. So, power 1 is seedling. Vine seedlings start growing towards the survivor in a radius. So the Birch places the seedling, and the vines start slowly creeping towards any survivor that's in a certain radius of that seedling. Should the vine tips, only the tips, reach the survivor, so a survivor can circle around and maybe deactivate the seedling or, destroy it. But should the tips reach a survivor, that survivor gets injured. Should they be injured, they get restrained through the tip, similar to a bear trap. Seedlings grow into trees after inflicting 3 injuries. So, should one seedling, without being harvested or whatever, grow into inflict 3 injuries, it grows into a tree. Trees attack only injured survivors, and the moment they attack them, sort of like vines come out and attack, like the Weeping Willow or whatever from Harry Potter, a skill check struggle starts. If the survivor fails the skill check, succeeds in the skill check struggle, the tree dies. If it succeeds, the tree becomes more or less a hook. If the survivor is saved from the tree withers. If the tree, however, sacrifices the survivor, it becomes an int and slowly starts lumbering across the map. And any survivor it perceives, so the question would be what it perceives and what it doesn't, if it's only attracted to walking or running survivors, or if it has some kind of a visual thing. But any survivor it perceives, it attacks. Only 3, of course, numbers are always, something would have to be tested out in the PTB and so on and so forth. But only 3 seedlings, trees, ints in total. So 1 seedling, 1 tree, 1 int, or 3 seedlings, or 3 trees, or 3 ints can exist at any given time. Alternate power 1. Creeping rot. The moss and grass starts growing in random locations from the map effect. Is affected by creeping rot. The birch can activate the creeping rot by standing on it. Depending on the activation, the rot gives aura reading, damage after a certain amount of time of standing in the grass or the moss, or not running in it, just walking or crouching, or repairing or healing or whatever. If a survivor starts cleansing the spawn point for the growth, the effects stop, and after cleansing, the area disappears. So you can, as stated, deactivate the spawn points, and let's say there's a 15-second damage timer, and you start cleansing it. You don't have to have it cleansed before the 15 seconds run out, because that would be unfair. But if you just stand in the area, you would get damage or reading or whatever starts. Power 2. Plant assimilation. An assimilated plant becomes part of the birch, in effect turning into an inactive birchling. With the secondary power, the birch can stand still, losing its terror radius and red stain, in effect becoming indistinguishable between the birch and the birchling. In this form, the birch can switch places with another birchling. After switching places, the birch has a 4-second freeze time before it can either cancel birchling concealment or /imitation, in effect starting a chase or giving the ability to start chase or moving, or it can stay as a birchling. While porting to a birchling, sounds can be heard of the survivor closest to the birch's new destination. In addition, the terror radius is active during the freeze time. Trees, seedling trees, and moss/grass spawn points can become birchlings. Let me just explain the birchling one more real quick again. So you can take whatever either trees that are on maps already, or grass spawn points, or moss spawn points. You can take also the seedlings from the first power, or the trees from the first power, or those things, and you can turn them into a birchling, in effect destroying what it was before, and it becomes a birchling. Looks like the birch, so survivors see it as the killer, or maybe it looks like a tree, whatever. But the birch can turn itself into something that looks exactly like that without terror radius or anything. And then they can more or less switch places with it. But while switching places with it, the one where they go to, where the birchling was, an area around that survivors hear that the birch is moving in that direction. They don't know which one there is if there are multiple, but they know that the birch moved in that direction. Should nobody be close by, they don't know. For 4 seconds after moving, the birch can't move, can't do anything, can't see. After those 4 seconds, no terror radius, the terror radius disappears again. The red stain doesn't appear during those 4 seconds, only terror radius. But after those 4 seconds, also the terror radius disappears, and then in effect, it looks like a birchling and is a birchling until it starts moving. Perks. Horrific growth. First perk. Horror grass grows on maps. On maps with grass, the existing grass gains the properties of this perk. Horror grass periodically, at random, spawns a terror radius. Effect occurs every 60, 45, or 30 seconds on one patch of grass. So in a map, like an indoor map where there's a little grass, there would be more grass. In maps where there is grass, there wouldn't be more grass necessarily. But the grass that's there would more or less on occasion give only one bush of grass, one group of grass would give off a terror radius as if the killer were there for a certain duration. Perk 2. Dark Nature's Pact. Exit gates gain a growth that can only be removed via a secondary objective, the plant kill switch. Plant kill switches spawn with the beginning of the map, so survivors see it, they know the perk is active. But the birch can also see it. Powering the switch takes 5, 10, or 15 seconds. Triggering the endgame collapse automatically triggers the plant kill switch. So closing the hatch actually helps survivors open the gates normally. But other than that, you have to push the button more or less, and then the growth on the gate exit gate openers disappears, and if it's not gone, you can't open the exit gates. Under moss, third perk. Gens are affected by moss growth. If a gen is covered in moss, it cannot be repaired until the moss has been removed. Moss-covered gens don't have an aura for survivors. Gens without moss start growing moss after 30, 45, or 60 seconds, as long as nobody's repairing it. So if a gen's not touched, the moss starts growing, but if somebody removed the moss or there isn't enough moss on it to take effect, they can repair it regularly. Now, let me know what you think of the killer. Write it in the comments, come into my stream, tweet at me. Tell me if you have any killers that you would like my take, what a Dead by Daylight version would look like. And other than that, till next time, toodles.